Software engineers, programmers, developers, welcome. So in this session of SE Thursdays, I'll be talking about the power of documentation. So I'll be your host in this session, Dev Nderitu. So in today's world of complex projects and ever-evolving technologies, a clear and concise documentation is essential. So it serves as a roadmap for understanding a project and a communication channel between the developers and users. So, and a valuable knowledge base for future reference. So, setting up project documentation not only helps fellow developers, but also the users of the said application or system. So, this presentation will explore the importance of project documentation with a focus of creating a well-structured and informative README file in Markdown. And in moving on to this presentation, I'll also show you how to use Markdown to achieve this. So why document your project? So this is a question that I see a lot of times it's asked, and number one, it's something, documenting your project is something that is severely underrated. It's an underrated skill, and it's that skill that can take you a long way. It's a skill that can take you from a junior engineer to a mid-level engineer to even a senior software engineer, or especially when it comes down to just explaining and doing some technical writing into your code. So effective documentation provides a clear picture of your project's purpose and functionalities and technical details. This clarity benefits everyone involved, from developers working on different parts of the project to the new team members joining in later stages when you're expanding or scaling your application. By documenting your project thoroughly, you can avoid errors and the need for rework, saving time and resources. So you don't have to keep going back because every single part is thoroughly documented, and you've put everything in an organized fashion to the point where you can't miss any single step. Additionally, good documentation ensures your projects can be maintained and scaled as needed in the future. So maintainability and scalability is something that happens time and time again, especially when you're dealing with complex set software applications. So they need to constantly improve, and when you have a good solid project documentation for your code, for your legacy code, you can be able to make upgrades to it, and you'll be able to know at what point you're supposed to develop and at one point you're supposed to go in and make changes. So finally, comprehensive project documentation allows for a smooth onboarding process for new team members, as they can easily grasp what is going on with the application. When you're developing an application, you can start as 2 developers, then slowly you keep adding more people to the team, and the other new members who come in to join in the development will want to be taken up to speed and know how the code base looks like and where they can be where they can be plugged in so that they can be able to develop a feature for the application. So during the onboarding process, the lead engineer will take through the new engineers through the documentation and tell them exactly how the app operates and where they're supposed to develop. So that is actually a very underrated and important key reason as to why you document your project. So when you hear about project documentation, you'll often hear the README file. So the README file is a file that, as the name suggests, README, it's the first file that you must look at before you open a project. Majority of the time, you'll see README files being utilized in open source projects. If you log into GitHub, which is the #1 open source coding platform for developers, the first document you encounter when you're opening up a big project or any project at that is the README file. So the README file, its purpose is to guide the new developer or the new person who wants to look at their code to be able to understand what is existing in the existing code base. You can't go ahead and just click on the actual source code before you go into reading the project README. So when you read the README, it guides you on why this coding file, this directory is there. So a README file is a text type typically placed is a text file typically placed in the root directory of a project. It serves as a first impression and a quick reference guide to your project. So a well written README file can significantly improve your user experience. So the README file is often the first contact point for anyone encountering your project. When you're working on a project and you put it on open source and you put it on GitHub, the first contact point for somebody, they have to check the README file to understand what the code is doing. So it's a crucial piece of documentation that provides a concise overview of the project, including its purpose, functionalities, and how to get started using your open source code in your project. So a well-crafted README can make a significant difference in user experience as it empowers users to understand and interact with your project effectively. So we've talked about the README file, but now how to craft a compelling README file. So so there are some key things and key sections you must consider when you're including when you're developing and just putting down your README file. So you've got the project title and description. So start with a clear and concise project title, followed by a brief description that captures the essence of your project. Then when you have set up your project title and the description, so the description is just what the project is doing. It's like a brief synopsis of what your project is about. Then you have your installation instructions. So outlining the steps required to set up and run the project. So provide a step-by-step instruction how to set up your project's environments and dependencies. For example, when developing a Django app in Python, you have to state the dependency. Did you use a virtual environment? Did you use a Docker container? What did you use to set up things? So, and also step by step on how did you create that directory? How did you start the apps that you created inside your Django project? After you created the app, what steps followed? Did you pip install some dependencies there? So there's that. So you have to include that, and that one enables somebody who wants to contribute to your project have an easy time when it comes to project setup. Then explain. Then you've got the usage guide, but this one changes with like the complexity of the project. It changes the complexity of the project. So the usage guide explains how to use the project functionalities with clear instructions and, if applicable, code examples. So in this session, I'm not going to get too much into the usage guide, because this one, every single project, if you're writing a project README, it changes with the level of complexity of the code, the code that is present in the code base. Then you got the contribution guidelines. If you're putting your code on open source, there's way that you want people to have a system in contributing. So that is actually one of those things that you must include if you are open sourcing your project for other people to contribute. Then you've got your license, specify the license under which your project is distributed. So as your project grows in complexity, you may want people to come and contribute, and you may want people to have the ability to be able to have a systematic way to even ask for pull requests and all that. So this is a very important thing, but in this case I will just take you through the fundamentals of how the readme file, how you're supposed to set up a good readme file. So enhancing a readme file, you've got you can include the table of contents for larger projects. So if you're doing a small project, you can be, there's not much you can, you don't have to make it as complex, but the complexity increases with like the bigger the project becomes. So got the table of contents there. You can use badges. Consider using badges to indicate the project licenses, build status, and other relevant information. Just like I said before, when you have released a project, an open source project, and you've put it on GitHub, and it's actually big, and you have and you have multiple features that you might want people to contribute to, that's when you've already done a lot, that's when you include badges. But in this case, the fundamentals, table of content, a brief one is okay. Then formatting and readability, use clear headings, bullet points, and code format for better readability. So that's one thing that is very important, especially when it comes down to just having like a very systematic and organized way to write your readmes, and sticking to a style is very important, and just sticking to like an overall consistent style. If you're using bullet points, you use bullet points. It's just the same way as writing a Word document, and you have you use similar fonts, use similar styles, so that the format of the whole readme can be consistent and readable. So you can also include screenshots, and using screenshots, code snippets, or GIF illustrations, or use of functionalities. And also you can also embed links, which we're going to look at. Then maintaining a consistent style, so ensure consistency in formatting and style throughout your readme for a professional look. Majority of the time you want your readme to be able to be eligible and people to be able to understand it from how they follow it from start to finish. So Markdown is the language that is used to write readme. It's a very lightweight markup language that allows you to format text documents from readable for readability on the web. Markdown is a very light language. When you see readme.md, so the .md extension, in full, it's Markdown. So it's easy to learn and uses plain text characters to achieve bold, italics, headings, and more. As long as you use the .md extension and you use use the lightweight markup language syntax in Markdown, you can be able to achieve that. So there's basic syntax. There are elements outlined in John Gruber's original design document. All Markdown applications support these elements. So we have the heading in there, got H1, H2, H3. We've got bold text, italic. So it's relatively, these are the basics that you need to learn and practice. This is supposed to be second nature, especially when you're writing project readmes for your documentation. But ordered list, you can see it's number 1, 2, and 3. Unordered, you use a hyphen. And this symbol is actually quite important to know. So to be able to embed code, you can either, this is a symbol that is beside the number 1, the number 1 button in your keyboard. There's a symbol, they share the same. I've quite forgotten the name of this symbol, but it is in the same box, is in the same button where you have the tilde. So beneath the tilde you'll have that symbol. So it's a symbol that enables you to highlight text or code and makes it stand out from the readme. So we've got horizontal rule, you can put the horizontal line. Embedding a link, use square brackets, write the title, then you embed the link using the brackets. Then the image, use a exclamation mark like that with square brackets, then you put into brackets the image and the actual image path. That's where you put it. It can be a link or it can be an image that is stored in a directory that is already uploaded. So yeah, then we've got the extended syntax. You can create table elements using pipes and hyphens. Then you can be able to use a fenced block code. So the fenced block code, it's those three, I don't want to say quotation marks, but it's like a back quotation mark that is just in the same buttons as the tilde, that can enable you to embed open source code. You can also write footnotes, which is that character raised to power 1 in square brackets. So that enables you to just add a little bit of formatting, but you use only the tools that you need. You don't have to use every single element in Markdown. You just stick to the basics and you try to see how far you can be able to use them. You don't have to use every single one. So I'm back with another video, and this video is just going to be quite different because I'll be just talking about how I design my readmes. I am very good in technical writing and I use Markdown to design such readmes. So if you go to my GitHub profile, you'll come across this. So you'll see like a brief description of what I do, who I am, and you'll see all my credentials in here. You'll see all these nice graphics, links, and my social media. So the big question I've been receiving a lot is, how did you manage to do this? So this is a combination of not just writing it in Markdown, like the whole README, but also using HTML and CSS. So as I go in and try to load this, so you can see there's a combination of HTML in there, not necessarily CSS, but not much CSS, but you could see there are so many links in there. So I'll just be in this video just giving you a walkthrough on how I was able to achieve just understanding and appreciating how to write good project readmes, as well as just showing you how to be able to explain your code, especially when you put it on GitHub. Majority of the time when you do technical writing, the first thing that you're required to do is to make sure that you have a very good readme that explains the code. Even before somebody goes into your code, especially into open source, you have to make sure that your code is thoroughly explained. And in this video, I'm just going to show you a sample of a project that I worked on, and it's called the EMS 254. I worked on it in my final project in the ALX program, and the content in the project is not important right now. Right now we're just going to talk about how I was able to structure the documentation of the technical documentation and how to write the README, and looking at even how it looks like on GitHub. Let me just open it on GitHub and just share the screen real quick. I made sure to be able to just explain all the methods in there. Let me just show it, because looking at this, it may look like gibberish, but this is the final product of how it looks like. So this is how it's looking like, especially when you go to GitHub. So anytime when you write good documentation, you don't have to necessarily go to the code first. You just have to look at how it's a walkthrough on how you did things. So you're seeing like there's a title there, there's a main title there, header 1, there are links attached to it. So if you click this, you'll go to the main repository. You'll see like a description, you'll see the file structure. Talked about the file structure, the routes, and also like making highlights, bullet points, just a very simple way so that somebody can be able to like follow through and understand like what you are actually coding. So this is a very important skill to have, especially when you're doing software engineering. And in this video, I'll just show you a snippet on how to be able to achieve these nice styles and to be able to write them very well, so that the projects that you develop look so professional. A lot of times I look at, like, I go to open source projects, the first thing I look at is their readme. And they have a detailed readme. They show you how to set up the project, they show you how to look at the file structure. Sometimes if you go directly to the code, you might not understand how that code works. Maybe you'll understand without going to the readme. Maybe you'll understand the code if you're part of the project, but people who are looking outside, looking in, won't be able to understand what you're trying to do per se. So in this video, I will just do a deep dive on how I did things. So let's get into it. So you have this single pound sign. Let me just highlight here real quick. So I'm using VS Code for this because I find this is actually a very nice tool to use, especially when it comes to like detailing and writing a good project readmes. And the reason why I like it, because there's a preview here of what you're going to be committing, especially when you're using GitHub. Of course, you have to commit your code here. So the README, you'll be committing it to GitHub, so it'll be there. So when you look closely at the hold on. When you look closely, where you see the readme, you're seeing the readme is there, but you're seeing it's like it's pinned here and it just falls below. So GitHub uniquely identifies the readme file, and it puts it at the bottom of your source code. So the reason why you're not seeing source code here is because I created a separate repository just to talk about this project and just have a detailed readme, so that it cannot have any conflicts with the main repository, because it was still under development. So with that out of the way, I will talk about just the basics, just so that you can be able to understand like where all this is, where all this is coming from. So we have our main header. So you see here it's highlighted as our main header. Then you have a hyperlink. So you have a header 2 here. So then there's the hyperlink here. So you can make this a link, you have to like put those square brackets, then you put like then you have to put like the curly, not the curly braces, but the brackets, the normal one. Then you put the link to it. So this is the link to the main repository that is being developed. Then just write your text here, like you just write like a description of the project. Then this is the fun part. So this here, when you put like this symbol, this is a symbol that you'll find at the beneath your escape button. So there's a symbol called the tilde. I forgot what the name of this symbol is, but it's used to highlight your projects. It's used to highlight your work so that you can look like this. So you can see like it's enclosed in somewhat of like a bubble. You can see it's somewhat like a bubble here. So when you put that symbol, it encloses things like that. So this is how it looks like. Just show. So when you close it with this symbol, so this symbol, you'll find it beneath the escape button at the top left of your keyboard and at the left side of your one. So you'll see a tilde and that symbol, so you'll use that. Yeah, so when you use that, it highlights it and puts it in somewhat of like a bubble. When you do that, it enables that. Then the links, use the square bracket to what you want to link to. It's like creating a hyperlink. Then you put like the square brackets, then you put like the square brackets in there, then you put like the normal brackets there. So yeah, then there's the bullets. If you want to put a bullet, you put like the hyphen there. The hyphen assists, especially when you want to like indent your points away from the margin. Sometimes it might look blocked, like this one. I didn't want to put this one because this was like the project description, but when you're trying to format your work and just make your work visually appealing, those are one of those things that you use. But you can see like the bubble, you can see that symbol for the bubble. I've used it a lot just to highlight the points, and Markdown is actually quite easy to like learn, because you have to just learn how to use those symbols at where you just have to understand those symbols, how to put them in your text, especially putting them in your documentation, and where to use them. So majority of the time I don't use as many or symbols, but what I try to do is just try to use as little symbols as I can, so that can just bring out like some points there. So I don't go all out in like making the documentation too pretty, but just making sure that I have everything I need, because after all, this is this is technical documentation. It doesn't have to look the most pretty, but just make sure that you highlight all the points that you need. So you can see I'm just using that symbol just to put the bubble, and just putting the bubble there. So that's pretty much it, and this one has enabled me to be able to like structure my work pretty well. So you can see like this one chooses to that symbol chooses to highlight some things that you might want the person or the people or the team that is going to be interacting with your project to make sure that they look at. So that's one thing that is actually quite important. I'll just scroll through it, but make sure to be able to explain your code pretty well and highlight the things that you need, because when you do that, it enables somebody who's going to come and inherit your code just have like some time to go through it and understand the logic behind it, and also not only understand the logic but also try to make changes to it, especially when it comes to like making like iterations to it or even creating a new branch to it. So yeah, so basically that's pretty much it. I will make sure to always update you on if there's any new symbol or any new change that can happen, especially when I'm writing my readme files. But man, it's awesome. And this is one thing that I try to insist: when you have like source code, especially on GitHub, make sure to write very good project readmes, because this enables somebody to be able to like follow up on your code pretty well. And one nice feature is when you want to replicate. A lot of people have been asking me, hey Indiritu, I would like to just see how you did your GitHub, how to like create a GitHub that really looks similar to mine. So it's actually quite simple. Let me just show you. And this is actually one nice feature that GitHub has. So to set up like your readme to look like this, so you have to create a project repository. Yeah, you have to create a repository that has a similar name to your username. Then you put a readme file in it so that it can appear on top here on your profile. After you have done that and you want to utilize the styles and the schema that I've used here for your own project readme, make sure to click here. You click on this pen thing here on the top. After you have done that, you can be able to like view all the styles and all the things that I've done here. But this one may look different to you on your side. So what I would strongly advise is you click here on my username here. After you have done that, click on the readme. When you press the readme, click on raw. Make sure to click on raw here, as you can see. When you click on raw, it will show you the HTML tags that I've used, and it will show you all the styling that I've used to make sure to achieve this. So for anyone who wants to somewhat replicate what I've been able to achieve on my project readme, that makes it look so appealing, you can just come and check the source code from here, because it's open source and I've not hidden it from anyone. Anyone can be able to achieve this, because initially I just followed an example of how somebody did it, and I just replicated and tweaked it to my liking and make sure that it makes sense to me. So if you want to do the same, just go to my repository which has my name on it and click on raw. And if you click on raw, you will see the raw code that was able to make sure that this is colorful. And my ALX certificate is there. Thank you, ALX. I graduated early last month. So yeah. So make sure to write good project readmes from now on, because this one enables you to stand out from other developers, because as senior developers look at your projects on GitHub, they look at how good you can explain them. You can have the best logic, but if you can't explain it pretty well, it puts you on it puts you down, and you're not it puts you down the rankings, because they look at you like someone who doesn't know how to explain things. But if you do this, it enables you not only to show to the employer that you're able to like understand what you're doing, but you also create confidence in yourself, because anytime that you want to reference your code, you don't have to remember what you did. You can just go back and refer to your previous project, and you'll be good to go. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure you like this video, make sure you leave your feedback down in the comments. I'll just be coming out with my nuggets of wisdom, especially when it comes to like software engineering, and be prepared, because I'm just going to be dropping a lot of videos along the way. And yeah, man, I'm out. Peace. Let me just put this one here. Yeah, hold up. Yeah, let me just leave it at that. Make sure you use VS Code, because it enables you to be able to like do this and have the preview on there. And happy coding.